Is she just a member of the assembly? And like Lily said, do you belong in certain spaces as a Jew? And like Ariella said, do I even look like a Jew? Everyone keeps asking me that question. I know Rosy Bagolie doesn't sound very Jewish. And as I've traveled during my time in the assembly, or even when I live in Livingston, in the Livingston Council, when I first put my son Frank in Hebrew school, I had a friend, a very good friend in town, we're very close now. She comes up to me and she says, "Are you here for like the cultural experience?" And I said, "Would I spend all this money for cultural experience? No." But October 7th happened, and I was one of those Jews that, I belonged to my synagogue for a long time because my kids were in Hebrew school and I wanted them to have their Judaic experience, and I wanted them to learn, and I wanted them to be bat mitzvah, and I wanted them to have a little bit more, a better experience than I had growing up in Elizabeth. But I was one of those that celebrated Passover. I went to Passover second in a temple. I did the ceremonies in my home for my children, and more like a secular Jew, like Lily said. After October 7th, something happened in my heart. Like many Jews, it seemed like we were asleep at the wheel and we woke up. We had this, I don't know that I can call it an epiphany, but we certainly woke up and said, what is happening in the world? We all lived in New Jersey very comfortably. We knew anti-Semitism was there. We weren't necessarily feeling it as much as we feel it today. The ADL just came out with a new report saying that New Jersey's anti-Semitic incidents, I think, rose by 70%, 60-70%, if I'm not mistaken. And I think about my colleagues that are in politics, how we are going out there and speaking, those of us who are brave enough to actually speak out and say what we're feeling, what we're thinking, or the fight that we want to have for our Jewish community. And just last week, Josh Gottheimer was at the Hillel at Rutgers University, where a riot broke out and 4 people were arrested because they attacked the police that were trying to hold the line of the protesters at the Hillel. In places where even today some of us heard the radio go off and we turned around. We've accustomed ourselves to walking through metal detectors whenever we gather. When I was growing up, when my children were at synagogue, we never had to walk through a metal detector. Now mine has the rate when you walk in, and we have full-on security, and we register people to come in and make sure their names are actually on the list to make sure that we are safe when we worship, that we are safe when we gather. I heard so many people speak today about so many different things that just resonated with me. We talked about the food in Israel being amazing. It is, by the way. The food in Israel, I'm Dominican, so. The food in Israel is truly great. But when I went to Israel right after October 7th, I went on a mission with Metro West that January, where the sukkahs were still standing. The fruit on the trees at the kibbutzim were ripe and fallen, and no one there to pick them. Where the soldiers were still standing ground, and if we could just take a moment to acknowledge the soldiers that we have lost and those that are still fighting for us in Israel. We pray for them every single day. We pray for those lost and those that continue to fight for a free Israel, a free democracy. We're here wearing orange today for the Beavis children. Blessed memory. As we saw those babies ripped from their mother's arms, as we saw the world fighting back, and those of us who are parents know the feeling of every day. I remember when I left my kids at daycare for the first time, there's the empty feeling that I had. I cannot imagine someone ripping my baby from my arms. And as my husband cried over I always talk about when my son was diagnosed with autism, my husband cried over my son's crib. I could only imagine the father of the Beavis children when he had to come home to bury his young and never to see them again. I've held Edan Alexander. I don't know why we have been adopted hostage, why he's mine, maybe because he's the son of New Jersey, because I watched the montage of his bar mitzvah, or the montage of his senior graduation. And my son, who is going to be 19 soon, I think of my son and I think of Adon. And I see the video on Passover morning when I wake up and I'm getting ready, and of course every morning I check the news to find out what's happening in the world. And that morning, seeing a video of the torture that Adon is going through, and having held his mother in my arms, hugging her at Hanukkah, my heart fell. And my table continues to be dedicated to that family, because I don't know what feelings are going to come over me. This son of New Jersey, this young soldier, this regular New Jersey boy who went off to Israel to defend his country, who is also an American longing to come home. We talk about that sense of freedom that we are not yet feeling today after October 7th. And we don't think we will feel that until our land is secure and our 59 hostages are brought back home. So I prepared a speech this morning that I haven't yet began to read. Because as everyone talked today, there was something that kept popping up in my mind. You know, I'm this Dominican Jew, I can talk about that. I've been to Israel, I can talk about that. I can talk about being a mom and not knowing how it would feel if this happened to my children. I can talk about standing over, seeing Gaza, being told to be, that if the sirens go off, that the soldiers were going to come and take us, and they were going to, and they were going to move us to safe passage. Having walked through Ofakim, having seen the destruction that occurred with my own eyes, because it takes seeing things sometimes with your own eyes to stay just true and steadfast to the convictions that your heart is feeling. So when they said to me, go to Israel, I said, yes. I need to see the truth with my eyes. So when those try to convince me that I'm wrong, or that what I am feeling and seeing is wrong, I can tell them I've walked it, I've lived it, I've seen it, and I feel it in my heart till this day. And you are not going to change my mind. So I'm going to begin to read my little speech to you today. This year, as we mark the 77th Independence Day, we do so with mixed emotions, joy and sorrow. Yes, Steve, it is a celebration, but it is not a celebration without grief. We celebrate a miracle, Israel, a homeland reborn from the ashes of history, a beacon of democracy, innovation, and resilience in a region that too often only knows turmoil. A place where Jewish lives thrive, no matter where you come from, and where people of all faith identities can live with dignity. I keep going on my tip because I know I'm going to start. Israel is not just a place on a map. It's a living, breathing promise that the Jewish people would never again be without a home. And we will continue to fight every single day to maintain our home. But we do not gather today with unburdened hearts. As a mother, I grieve. As a Jew, I remember. And I don't forget. And as a public servant, I will not be silent in the face of the growing anti-Semitism that is occurring in our state. Not in our schools, not on our campuses, not on our streets. And never again must mean more than just remembrance. It must mean action from all of us to continue to speak out. If October 7th taught us anything, and then if October 8th gave us a very big lesson in life, is that we must continue to use our voices to speak out for what is right. When I send my sons into the world today, my blessings are no longer things like, have fun, or will you be home? Make sure you call me. It's a whisper now that says, come home safe. Be careful. Be careful about the spaces that you go into. But I refuse to live in fear, and I refuse to accept that this is the world that I am giving to my children. It's raining. And I believe that a strong, secure Israel is not only for the Jewish people, it is good for America. It is our national interest to support only the true democracy in the Middle East. And Israel at peace strengthens a global stability. A thriving Israel is a partner in innovation, in a democracy in progress. Our nations are not bound by political alliances, but by shared ideals, freedoms, and resilience and hope. And today I have a Republican candidate running for the Assembly, as I stand here as your Democratic candidate running for the Assembly, both standing here in a bipartisan way in support of our land, in support of our Jewish faith. This can happen in the United States. We need to put aside the words that being a Jew is a partisan thing, that the protection of Jews is a partisan thing. We must come together as one. So I spoke to a rabbi the other day. He said, I'm a Republican. And I said, Rabbi, that's okay. Once a Jew, always a Jew. And we are connected by our faith. And he looked at me and said, we should do a podcast, Rosy and the Rabbi. I said, okay, Rabbi. I dream of a world where Israel's families don't need to worry about bomb shelters, where Jewish and Palestinian children grow up together without fear. When I was in Israel, I visited a school, and as you all know, I'm an educator, I've been an educator for 25 years. And I visited a school called Hand in Hand, probably a school like the one here in Clifton, where our Palestinian children go to school together with Israeli children in Israel. And some of us showed up with cards for the Israeli children. And the teacher stopped us at the door and said, in this school, we give cards to all the children. In this school, we all work together. As the name of our school, Hand in Hand. That happens in Israel today, and that can happen across our world if we all just realize that we all need to work together for peace, not against it. So today our hearts are hold both grief and gratitude. We say, on Israel high, the Jewish people live. We honor the past, we defend the present, and we fight for a better future, because our mere survival is not enough. We were not born simply to endure. We were born to build, to teach, to create, to love. We were born to thrive. Happy Independence Day to Israel. May your light continue to shine through the darkest of times. May the hostages come home soon. And may peace, not hatred, have the final word. Again, together we say, Am Israel High. Shalom.